Hey everyone, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner, and I have a very special guest in the corner. It's Britton. To start off, could you tell us how you got into the world of acting?
Well, it was really when I was a teenager. Uh, I was sort of in between high school and university, and I was looking for something that would um, sort of direct my energies and sort of creative feelings and such. And so I went and studied acting at night while I was working during the day, and then I went to university, York University in Toronto, and went into the theater program. And after that 4-year program, I sort of immediately got into theater, which was at that time was sort of so every actor's goal was to go to Stratford, or to sort of do a classical theater route rather than television. And so I spent a couple of years at Stratford and a couple of years at the Shaw Festival in Ontario. And then I did theaters throughout Canada. And then I went to New York for a while in the early 80s and did some theater there. And that's when I sort of started getting into voiceovers. And animation wasn't as big then as it is now, of course, but I was slowly getting into that, especially with Nelvana, which had their production offices in Toronto. And that's when I started to audition for voiceovers, commercials, narrations, and then animation. And that's kind of how I began to audition for parts. And with my voice, of course, I usually play the villains.
I noticed
or
that.
Sort of, I'm sorry?
I noticed that looking at your demo reel and a few other things that you're usually the bad guy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, sort of. Well, the last one that was released a couple of months ago, Thor: Tales of Asgard, I played Odin, the father of Thor. And then I won't get ahead of myself, but that's how I sort of started to get into voiceovers. And at that time, Nelvana was doing the Care Bears, Rupert the Bear. They were also Sailor Moon was being dubbed in Toronto at that time, and those were sort of the early ones that really started to really sort of introduce me to that area of the business.
And now, one of your most recent roles is in the Silent Hill movie. How did you get into that?
Well, Silent Hill, I was in Toronto when they were casting that. I fly sort of, now I'm sort of spend half the year in Los Angeles, and then I spend part of the year in Vancouver, and I also go to Toronto perhaps once or twice a year. And the French director Christophe Gans was casting that show, and I mean, I wasn't that familiar with Silent Hill the game, but I sort of caught up on it, and I just knew that it was going to be sort of expensive and great special effects, and the images of that film still kind of resonate. I think it's a lot of sort of fear images and scary images, and it was quite a good film in that regard, I think. And some wonderful actors in it, and they sort of took over the small town just outside Toronto and made it look like Silent Hill. And I did about 2 weeks on it, and it was a very enjoyable shoot.
Well, I have
And
to say
since then,
that must have been fun too, because from what I saw, I went back and I rewatched the scenes you were in. A lot of the people with masks, they got to beat Sybil, the character Sybil, up, and so I wonder if there was any stunts in there per se, or fake hits that to get your aggression out. That must have been fun.
Not really. Well, in a way, there was there was a bit of a stunt, sort of in the death scene where I kind of blew up, I guess. And then when we were beating someone up, that was another one. But all those things, of course, look much better on camera. And but I remember it being very hot because of those sort of the headgear and the costumes and all that. And it really had a feeling of grit and grime and dirt and sort of an underground feel to it, which in that regard it was really an excellent location, and I thought the art direction was fantastic in it, and the director of photography did a wonderful job.
Now, when did you first get introduced to anime specifically?
That was, perhaps with Sailor Moon. That type of dubbing was sort of the first time that I sort of encountered that type of dubbing. But then when I went to Vancouver, and I guess Death Note was sort of the one that sort of had the biggest impression. Because that character was terrific, the father, the detective father, Surichio Yagami, and that was, something like, 30 episodes, and that I thought was quite a good series. So I thought the animation and the anime was fantastic in that. And I thought the characters were really, sort of, they had their own complexity to them, their own dimension, and it was really an enjoyable series to work on.
And I definitely think that character is very pivotal to the series because he sort of, in a way, is, if I can get a little bit, psychological. He's the little angel, I guess you would say, on Light's shoulder because he grew up with a dad that's so, into justice and very self-sacrificing. So I think it helped shape the main character essentially.
Yes, I think you're right. I think he was sort of a paternal role model that his son could either reject or follow. And there was, which especially in, my favorite scene of that series is, I think it's episode 17, the execution, where he's driving his son and his girlfriend, and he pretends that he's going to kill them both because, so, I think that scene is, kind of a pivotal scene in terms of their relationship and how relieved he is when it turns out for the best in his mind.
Now, did you find it difficult to, step into a character that's usually so calm and collected and have high emotion scenes like that?
Not really. I think for animation and for voice work in particular, well, animation in particular and voice work generally, I think being an actor, having done theater and film and television, I think that really expands your range of emotional capabilities and vocal capabilities, and so you sort of go for the emotional content of the scene, and so you make these transitions. What is difficult, of course, is I think probably most fans of animation know, is that with anime, if you're dubbing, of course, the animation is there. It's, you're dubbing for the completed product. But with original animation, they haven't created the animation yet. So you are just going from the script without having the animation in front of you, or, you've seen it. So you have to really work with your imagination. I guess the equivalent would be actors working in front of a green screen now and responding to what they imagine, a huge creature coming, which will be CGI'd later on. And so the imagination is really what creates the emotion within the actor. And so you go by the script. and your relationship to that. And many times you're not in a studio with the other actors interacting. You are just doing your lines separately. So that brings another challenge as well.
And granted, you can't get too physical, or you might knock down the really expensive mic in the booth.
That's right. Yes. Well, that's a good point, because actors or voice people don't wear clunky jewelry, of course, and shirts or T-shirts that make noise, that sort of ruffle. And you have to be aware of anything that makes a sound, that would ruin a take. That's the most annoying thing.
Have you ever gone into the booth wearing something that you thought was fine, and then it ended up making like feedback or anything like that?
I think perhaps I might have worn a shirt. Well, usually now what I try, I think perhaps I don't remember what sort of prompted this originally, but now when I go into the studio, I usually just wear a T-shirt, because inevitably, especially with the characters that I play, it requires a great deal of energy. So, you can work up a sweat quite quickly. So you don't want to be overdressed. You want to be comfortable, and you want to sort of have freedom of movement. So I always try to sort of just go in with a T-shirt. Well, and of course, pants, of course.
Yeah, but pants are a good thing.
But just wearing a T-shirt is kind of, what I just try to, that's my, animation wardrobe.
Well, it must be kind of nice since you don't have to get too, fancy. I've heard some voice actors actually go into the booth in their pajamas, which is amazing. That could be, that could be a way of, I do that sometimes, in my little, home studio, but, that's a way of being comfortable and loose, and it's whatever it takes for the voice actor to be comfortable. Definitely. And you mentioned just a home studio, and it's kind of interesting to see how technology, especially in voice acting, has kind of taken 5 steps forward due to the fact that you can do auditions at home now.
That has changed the business radically. Years ago, it was very expensive to set up a home studio, and it was for many actors beyond their sort of financial outlay. But now with technology, it's the price has come down considerably. The technology has become smaller and smaller, so you can travel with it. You can set up your own. If you're in a hotel, you can do an audition. And you can, you don't need that much space if you're, moving around, or, you don't have an extra studio in wherever you're living. So actors do have much more flexibility, and a lot of agencies now require auditions from home. My agency here in Los Angeles, they bring you in to do the auditions, but I know some agencies, they want you to MP3 it. So you sort of have to have some kind of setup. Either it's just simple GarageBand with a mic into your Mac laptop, or you have, a little more sophisticated setup. You can spend, $1,000 or $500, or you can spend $10,000 or more. It all depends on, how much you can afford to spend. But you can do it now.
I've heard some pretty funny stories, like voice actors being in closets or having egg cartons on the walls to absorb sound, So
yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, both, my house in Vancouver and my condo here in Los Angeles, both studios are set up in some form of a closet space. I wasn't prepared to add on a studio. I set up, a studio within the confines of a closet, and it works just fine. With some baffling and you can not soundproof it per se, but you can certainly make it broadcast quality.
And I must say that must be very nice in the LA area where, the streets are horrible there, no offense. But whenever I go, the traffic's so bad.
Yes, well, fortunately where I live, it's fairly quiet, but still, there are times that, I have to, put off doing an audition or something because there's some noise in the condo, or, there's someone's car alarm is going off, or, so it has, there are certain disadvantages, but, you just have to work around it. But it's changed the business radically, that's for sure. And of course, what that means is that a great many more people have now entered the business. And so that's, it's much more competitive now, and there's greater ranges of opportunities for producers and directors to choose from. And, it means you have to perhaps work harder at getting your name and your voice out there. And, but the business has changed, certainly in the last 10 years.
Now, this might not be a question you want to answer, so feel free to say no comment. But has the competitiveness perhaps changed people in the business? Because I always hear that voice actors are a little bit more, I guess, less, cat scratching and eye tearing in terms of competition.
Do you mean as compared to on-camera actors?
Yes.
Do you mean? That might be so. I think perhaps it just takes a different form. It's not as perhaps outward, but people who are competitive, but with voice actors, that all you can do is your best on tape or in the booth. You do the audition and then you leave. With on camera, I think you have the added the added stress of, was it because he didn't like the way I looked, or, my acting, or, there are many more variables with on camera than there are with animation. Now, I'm sure some voice people will say that's not true, but it's a different. I would say it's less to a certain degree, and it really requires a very singular talent, voice work, and not everyone is suited for it. There are a lot of actors who can't do voice work. They can't do animation, for example. It's just something they don't feel comfortable. I know a number of actors who don't feel comfortable in a sound studio. But of course, there are a great many voice people who can't act in front of a camera. So it goes both ways.
And I also hear, specifically in anime, there's some people that just don't have the rhythm to, match up with the beats.
Well, that is, what is interesting, just to, from a technical point of view, dubbing, for example, I feel is the most difficult aspect of animation. Because not only do you have to have the same character requirements and vocal requirements as you do in sort of the other type of animation, but you have to be able to time your rhythm and words to match the voice that you are dubbing. And that requires a very specific skill. And, that's, people who are good at that, it's really, it's really a talent and a specific technique.
Definitely. And I mean, you don't get to see really much beforehand. Usually you get the script, right on the spot, and you're like, and they're kind of basically like, go.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and I think it's all a sense of inner timing. You have sort of an inner clock, and you can sort of sense when to start and when to finish, and how long it takes you to say those words within those boundaries. And the same applies to doing commercials for radio or television. Many times I've had a producer in a studio say, can you shave off half a second or 1 second from that line? And it sounds ridiculous, but you have to be able to do that. You have to know where to shave off that 1 second so that it fits in within the commercial parameters.
Well, sadly, I don't have anything to compare that to. I mean, usually when we're running out of time on air, we still have about 2 minutes, and we're watching the clock go down, so we can cut off pretty well. We have a big amount of time, but you guys kind of have to focus on the nanoseconds a little bit more.
Yes. Yeah.
And now, for fans of your work, for the listeners out there, is there anything that you've recently been in that's been released, or is there anything that you're working on that you would like them to know about?
Well, now, as I mentioned before, the feature film for Tales of Asgard was released, and online reviews have been, very positive about it, and I did Odin in that, which was a great part, And I have something coming out this fall for Marvel, a series where I play sort of a well-known role. I can't mention it by contract because apparently they will come to my house and take my furniture and empty my fridge. It's sort of you sign these, non-disclosure agreements, and you're on tenterhooks in case you let it slip what character you're playing before it's actually aired. So it will be aired, I think in September, or at the end of August, I'm pretty sure. And it's sort of a classic villain character. So I'm sort of the new voice of this, villain character. So that's coming out.
Very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. There's it's a great character, and this is the second series that they're doing. So.
Well, now, for the listeners who want to keep track up to date on what you're doing, do you have a website? Do you do social media? Anything like that?
Yes, I have my website, which I'm in the process of changing, but it's still there. It's just chrisbritton.ca, and I do have a Twitter account. I think it's I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it's just Chris Britton Voice or Chris Britton Voice Creative. I'm not as I don't attend to it as often as I should, but I think I'll be sending out more tweets soon, and that's sort of and then IMDb, of course, keeps things up to date.
Now, for those brave souls out there who want to stalk you in a nice way, in real life, are there any events that you're going to in the future, maybe?
Not that maybe when this new series comes up, there might be something, but no, there's no appearances. This is where my wife outshines me quite a bit, thanks to Star Trek. So she makes quite a number of appearances, and no, I don't have anything in that area.
Well, we'll make sure to keep our eyes peeled to your Twitter and your website just in case something pops up.
Great. Yeah.
And now, I'm curious, is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners out there?
Not really. If you haven't sort of watched Death Note, it's for anime fans. It's a terrific series worth taking a look at. and revisiting X-Men, Mr. Sinister, that animation series. I really enjoyed doing that character as well. There are a few villains and and Lord characters, sort of like Odin, that I'm sort of glad that I've had the good fortune to do.
And now we actually have a tradition here on 91.8 The Fan, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to participate.
Yes, sure.
We ask everyone if they'd be willing to do a radio bump for us.
A radio what?
A radio bump? Basically say a line for us?
Oh, sure.
Awesome. We were just wondering if you could say, hello, my name is, you insert your name, I do this, you can put characters or what type of actor you are, whatever you want to put there. And the important part at the end is, and you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
All right, hold on just a sec. 91. I'm going to write this down.
That's a good idea. A lot of people do that.
91.8, did you say?
Yes. 91.8 The Fan. Yeah.
All right. All right,
Whenever
let's try let's try one take and see how it goes. Now, so it's my name, what I do, certain characters, and then you're tuned in to 98.1.
91.8 The Fan.
91.8.
It's okay.
91.8.
People do that all the time.
All right. Okay. All right. I'll give it a try now. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hi there. This is Chris Britton. I'm let's do take two. Hi there. I'm Chris Britton. I'm an animation actor. I've done Odin in Thor: Tales of Asgard, Mr. Sinister in X-Men, and Sorichio Yagami in Death Note. And you are tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
Look at that. There you go.
Let me do another one. Let me do another one. Hold on a sec.
All right.
Okay?
Let's do a take 3.
Okay. Hello, my name is Chris Britton, and I am an animation actor and on-camera actor, and you are tuned in to 91.8 The Fan.
I like your announcer.
How's that?
It's so official.
Did that sound too announcery?
No, I thought that sounded great. I loved it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And for any of you who missed any part of this interview, don't fret, because it'll be up on the website in the next few days. So stay tuned. Everything you want, nothing you don't.